What's good, YouTube? My name is Coach, and what's good to all the subscribers? Thank you guys for being subscribed. And if you would like a double what's good, you can be subscribed to this channel. My name is Coach, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about Captain Negathrod. This is not necessarily a deck tech, but more a strategy guide, so that if you're planning on playing as Captain Negathrod, just some things you have to consider when you're playing this deck based on my experience, both winning against and losing to this commander and winning as this commander. So Captain Negathrod says that horrors you control have menace. Whenever a horror you control deals combat damage to a player, that player mills that many cards. Beginning of your end step, choose target artifact or creature card in an opponent's graveyard. Let's put there from the library this turn, put it onto the battlefield under your control. Okay, so Captain's about milling cards. Milling cards means taking cards from the top of your library, put into your graveyard. So generally when I play against Negathrod, either one of two things are happening. It's either they're either amassing a giant board state of a bunch of creatures with menace and protecting them with counter spells, or they're just making you mill out your entire library. What you as a person want to be aware of, you have to ask yourself the question, do I want to focus on the mill portion, or do I want to focus on the combat damage portion? Because based on your decision, it's going to wildly change your ability to affect a game that you're playing. So what you want to avoid, and in my experience, when I beat Captain Negathrod decks, it's usually because they have a mixture of either cards that are just strictly for milling and then some creatures that are horrors on the battlefield with menace that mill. So in essence, it'll be like me having a Dothy horror on the battlefield in Captain Negathrod, and then I cast a spell that forces everyone to mill 14 cards, and then I attack with this 2/1 with menace, force somebody mill 2 cards, with the potential that they mill something that I could take and put onto my board. The key is to either play every card that forces people to mill 14, like mill half your library, mill 14, mill half your library again, and now they're playing and they only have 20 cards left in their library. Or you could sit there, play a Dothy Horror, get Consuming Aberration, play a Dread Reaper, play Nemesis of Reason, and have these on the board, and then you're like, all right, I'm gonna cast Captain Negathrod. You play your commander, and now you have a 2/1, whatever power this would be. This is a 6/5 and a 3/7, and then you go to attack. So that when you attack, all of a sudden, all of these creatures have menace, and they force that person to mill that many cards equal to the amount of damage that they took, and then you steal something. So in my experience, your deck should either fall into one of those two strategies, either mill or just creatures. And based off of that decision that you make, honestly, you may even end up changing your commander. While Negathrod does give you the ability to take cards from your opponents, and having Negathrod on the battlefield and just being able to take your opponent's things after you mill them, while that's kind of like a cool strategy, I think Phoenix, which is another mill commander, really helps to accelerate that massive amount of mill every single turn. So if mill is your focus and you're playing in these colors, I would probably suggest you play Phoenix. But if you're playing Captain Negathrod and you want to focus on the creatures, while you play creatures, you can play cards like they put this card in the precon, Endless Evil, that makes token copies of the creatures that you control. They gave you a Reflections of Litjara. You can find a Rite of Replication to make token copies of your creatures. And basically, you just assemble a board of giant creatures, give them menace and the ability to mill, and then somewhere inside your deck, you'll have a counter spell that you could always hold up to protect your board state. And now people are taking damage and they're milling, and in this form of the deck where you're playing around creatures, the mill doesn't really, you're not trying to mill people out of the game. The mill just acts like you're forcing people to discard cards from their hand, hoping that as they mill, they're milling the cards like the board wipes that are going to be able to respond to what you have on the board. So, and in my experience, that's the version of the Gathar that I lose against the most, is the one that I built over here, because that's what I've lost to, and I think that that's what's most effective. What I would also say is Arami of the Dead Tide also works extremely well if you're looking to build a creature-based version of the Nethrod. And Mindcrank is really just a win condition, man, in this version of the deck. People are losing life, and then they mill that many cards. And if you're playing around this Mindcrank, I would also suggest playing a Beacon of Unrest, which allows you to put an artifact from your graveyard back onto the battlefield. It essentially lets you get your Mindcrank back. And play any other cards that allows you to bring your artifacts from your graveyard back to your hand. I know there's some lands that let you do that. So, you know, if I missed out anything, if you're someone that plays this commander and knows a lot, or you play it against this commander, you know a lot, you can leave it in the comment section below. But this is just a quick strategy guide so that when you go into a game playing as this commander, just remember you either want to go mill or you want to go creatures. And based on whichever one you decide, you either want to just, you know, you just have to build the deck that way so that you're not somewhere in between, because when you're in between, you're not putting enough, you end up not either putting enough pressure on an opponent's library or not putting enough pressure on an opponent's life total, right? When you mill somebody out, you have to mill 100 cards or 90 cards. When you're dealing damage, you only have to deal 40 damage. So there's a big difference between the two. And I hope that this video allows you to win games in the future, okay? So if there's other commanders you'd like for me to talk about, you can leave it in the comment section below, and I'll talk about those commanders in a future video, okay? Always remember, eat healthy, okay? Work out every single day. Most importantly, you gotta believe in yourself, all right? Peace out, people. Be good.